Good to see the ball go through the net. But I think, every game, regardless, you're making shots, you're not. It feels really, really good to have your teammates behind.
You know that feeling. The moment the ball leaves your hands, arcs through the air, and snaps perfectly through the net. It's pure magic. But according to Lexi Hull, the real magic isn't in the shot itself. It's in the people standing behind you. It just feels amazing to know your teammates have your back, whether you're making shots or not. That's what she said. But nobody expected what would come next. Because just a few days later, Lexi didn't just talk about basketball. She revealed everything. The struggles, the tension, the transformation, and the truth behind Caitlin Clark's journey with the Indiana Fever. And her words have completely flipped the story we thought we knew. The basketball world is stunned. Fans are shocked. Teammates can't stop talking about it. And social media? It's on absolute fire. Because Lexi Hull just exposed a side of Caitlin Clark that nobody, not fans, not analysts, not even some teammates, have fully seen before. So what did Lexi reveal? And how does it change Caitlin's image forever? Sit tight. We're breaking it all down. And trust me, you've never heard this story told like this. Before the doubt, before the pressure, before the identity crisis, Lexi Hull was a name, a real one. At Stanford, she wasn't just a role player. She was a fearless competitor, sharp, focused, and relentless. A national champion who seemed built for the big stage. So when the Indiana Fever drafted her 6th overall, it wasn't luck. It was belief. They saw someone who could spark a cultural shift. Someone smart, fast, disciplined. Someone who could help rewrite the franchise's future. But the WNBA is a different world. A brutal one. Everything is faster. Everything hurts more. And everything, absolutely everything, gets in your head. Suddenly, Lexi wasn't a star anymore. She was just another player trying to survive. Minutes disappeared. Touches disappeared. Confidence evaporated. Those cheers she once lived for? Gone. Replaced by doubt. By silence. By the echo of a career slipping away. It messes with your head, she later admitted. And this wasn't just Lexi's story. Every woman in the WNBA was once the star of her college team. Now, they were all fighting to matter again. But Lexi's struggle was part of something bigger. Something broken inside the Fever long before Caitlin Clark ever walked in. People think the Fever were losing because of bad rosters. Wrong. They were losing because they'd forgotten how to believe. Years of defeats had twisted the team's entire identity. Losing wasn't disappointment anymore. It was an expectation. The atmosphere was heavy, quiet, resigned. Criticism replaced encouragement. Hope faded. And even the most talented players struggled because who can thrive in a culture that stopped believing in itself? They didn't just lack scoring. They lacked purpose. And then, like a storm rolling in from miles away, Caitlin Clark arrived. Caitlin Clark's entrance wasn't normal. It was seismic. She didn't walk into the room. She shifted the room. Suddenly, arenas sold out. Cameras followed every step. Expectations spiked overnight. The Fever became the story of the WNBA. But for Caitlin, this wasn't about celebrity. She carried the same fire she had at Iowa, maybe stronger now. She wasn't there to adjust to the Fever's culture. She came to rebuild it. Her standard of excellence didn't just challenge the team's old habits. It declared war on them. Practices got sharper. Film sessions got louder. The entire vibe changed. Even Lexi noticed it. Not just Caitlin's game. Her presence. Her focus. Her maturity. Her gravity. It's really awesome getting to know her, teammates quietly said later. But Clark's composure wasn't softness. It came with an edge, a relentless expectation, a demand that everyone around her rise to her level. And one practice proved just how serious she was. Insiders still talk about it. A scrimmage early in the season. Sloppy turnovers. Low energy. Bad communication. And suddenly, Caitlin Clark stopped the entire drill. She didn't smile. She didn't soften her tone. She didn't act like a rookie. She unloaded, calling out mistakes, calling out effort, calling out players, including veterans. The gym went silent. This wasn't the cheerful superstar fans adored in interviews. This was the version of Clark forged from pressure, expectations, and years of carrying teams on her shoulders. And her words hit hard, really hard. The coaching staff had a choice. Soften her, rein her in, ask her to tone it down. They considered it, seriously. But the truth was undeniable. Caitlin wasn't destroying them. She was exposing what was already broken. So they made a risky decision. They let the fire burn. Some players recoiled. Some took Clark's intensity personally. Some shut down. But not Lexi Ho. Because in that moment, that raw, uncomfortable moment, she recognized something. This was her last shot. Her last shot at relevance. At proving she belonged. At rebuilding the part of herself she had lost. So while others felt overwhelmed, Lexi felt awakened. She matched Clark's energy. Not with words, but with effort. She stayed late. She showed up early. She worked through exhaustion, frustration, self-doubt. And whenever Clark stayed late, Lexi stayed too. 2 players, 2 paths, 1 goal, rising again. And slowly, something started to shift. Her spark returned. Her rhythm returned. Her confidence returned. It wasn't just improvement. It was rebirth. Their chemistry didn't come from comfort. It came from conflict, from sweat, from confrontation, from blowing past their limits. Caitlin would make passes that didn't seem human, slicing through impossible gaps. And somehow, Lexi was always there at the right moment. Coaches were stunned. Teammates whispered about it. This wasn't luck. This wasn't coincidence. This was trust. Built the hard way. Caitlin's fire. Lexi's resilience. Together, a spark the Fever hadn't seen in years. Lexi's comeback became symbolic. If she could rise, if she could fight, if she could rediscover her identity, then maybe everyone else could too. And they did. Aaliyah Boston set harder screens. Kelsey Mitchell ran the floor like every possession mattered. Bench players fought harder in practice. The Fever didn't just improve. They transformed. They weren't predictable anymore. They weren't passive anymore. They weren't hopeless anymore. They were alive. But success always has a price. With wins came attention. And with attention came criticism. Lots of it. Lexi went from unnoticed to watched. From ignored to analyzed. From forgotten to a target. Every mistake was magnified. Every hesitation replayed. Every shot judged. But this time, she didn't crumble. She channeled it. She hardened. She grew. It was the hardest thing I'd ever done, she admitted. Every day felt like a test. Early mornings, late nights, film sessions instead of rest, self-doubt replaced by discipline. She wasn't trying to prove herself to critics anymore. She was proving herself to herself. Meanwhile, across the league, resentment grew. Teams hated the Fever's rise. Players took cheap shots at Caitlin. Physical play intensified. If they couldn't stop her game, they'd try to break her spirit. But the Fever had other plans. One game changed everything. A veteran rival delivered a hard foul on Caitlin. The kind meant to send a message. And Lexi didn't hesitate. Not for a second. She stepped straight into the confrontation. Fearless, furious, protective. The benches nearly cleared. The arena erupted. But the message was clear. Mess with Caitlin Clark, you mess with all of us. That moment wasn't about fighting. It was about loyalty. The Fever were no longer individuals. They were a force, forged in struggle, united in purpose, bound by something deeper than basketball. Caitlin didn't build followers. She built warriors. And Lexi became one of her strongest. When Caitlin Clark stepped into the WNBA spotlight, the Indiana Fever went from almost invisible to the center of every conversation. Tickets vanished in hours. Cameras followed every step. Social media erupted. Every pass, every shot, every expression dissected, critiqued, celebrated. For most teams, this would be fatal. Ego clashes, envy, pressure, expectations. Any of that could have ripped them apart. But not this Fever team. Lexi Hull saw it differently. From the very first practice, the energy just shifted. It wasn't just talent coming in, it was a force that made us better, all of us. Caitlin's arrival didn't divide them. It united them. Veterans reminded themselves, admiration doesn't mean inferiority. Rookies learn respect without losing confidence. Every player learned to thrive in the same room as greatness. Because greatness doesn't just inspire, it demands growth. The Fever's transformation wasn't just on hardwood. Off the court, something deeper was forming. Quiet, invisible, but absolutely vital. Late-night dinners after away games. Bus rides filled with laughter, advice, and shared dreams. Empty gyms, practicing in silence, learning from mistakes together. Caitlin wasn't treated like a celebrity. She was treated like one of them. Lexi quietly noted, "She's part of us, not apart from us. That's why we've grown together." That delicate balance, admiration for a superstar, equality for the team, became the glue for a culture that had been broken for years. As the season progressed, the Caitlin-Lexi partnership became something almost mythical. Lexi began reading Caitlin's moves like a second language. She anticipated passes before they arrived. She finished plays that seemed impossible. And Caitlin? She trusted Lexi to always be in the right spot. Every game, every possession, every minute. The two of them created a rhythm that electrified the team. This wasn't just talent. It was trust forged through confrontation, challenge, and shared ambition. But no story of greatness is without trials. Caitlin suffered a serious injury mid-season, one that forced her off the court for weeks. Suddenly, the Fever's rhythm broke. The once fluid offense stuttered. The team stumbled through games, unsure how to function without their anchor. Doubt crept in. For the first time, Lexi felt the weight of true responsibility. "It felt like starting over from scratch," she later admitted. "The court felt empty without her. We had to find our own fire." Lexi didn't just step up. She became the voice of the locker room. She pushed practice harder. She demanded communication. She reminded everyone that the Fever's strength wasn't in one player. It was all of them together. And slowly they found it. They discovered new ways to win. They moved the ball faster. They trusted each other more. Roles evolved, and confidence returned. Lexi learned the most important lesson of all. Leadership is not just about points or stats. It's about showing up when it's hardest. Meanwhile, Caitlin's presence off the court never waned. Even unable to play, she showed up to practices. She guided, encouraged, supported. She stayed connected, breaking down plays and keeping morale high. "She taught me that leadership isn't always about being on the scoreboard," Lexi said. "Sometimes it's just being there, refusing to quit." Her resilience became a quiet anchor for the team. Returning from her own injuries, Lexi came back transformed. Sharper cuts, fierce defense, sharper instincts. Her confidence soared. And Caitlin? Her court vision created openings that only Lexi could exploit. The synergy was unreal. Every play told a story of two different paths converging. One, built on survival and rediscovery. The other, built on relentless fire and leadership. Together, they became unstoppable. Lexi's resurgence wasn't just about her stats. It was about mental growth. Gone were the doubts, the hesitation, the fear of failure. In their place, belief, courage, and relentless focus. And as the team felt Lexi's fire, everyone else grew. Aaliyah Boston pushed harder. Kelsey Mitchell sprinted faster. Bench players fought with purpose. The Fever became synchronized, hungry, and unstoppable. Their offense, once predictable, now flowed like a living organism. Every possession mattered. Every player mattered. Every moment counted. But the road wasn't easy. With success came intense scrutiny. Every missed shot, every small mistake, every defensive lapse, magnified. Online critics, analysts, and fans dissected every move. Lexi felt it. The pressure was deafening. But she didn't fold. Instead, she turned it into fuel. She hardened her resolve. She refined her focus. She became stronger than ever before. Resentment from other teams grew. Opponents, but Lexi and the Fever weren't intimidated. One confrontation became legendary. A rival delivered a hard foul on Caitlin. Lexi didn't flinch. She stood up instantly, voice cutting through chaos, ready to defend her teammate. The benches nearly cleared. The arena erupted. An attack on Caitlin was an attack on all of us, Lexi said. From that day, the Fever weren't just teammates. They were warriors united. Caitlin Clark's true power wasn't in speeches or slogans. It was her presence. The glare after a missed rotation. The precision of her passes demanding readiness. The silent expectation that everyone would give their all. She didn't create followers. She forged warriors. Lexi's growth mirrored that. She wasn't just returning. She was reborn, shaped by the brutal realities of professional basketball. The spotlight remained unrelenting. Caitlin Clark was constantly analyzed, every choice dissected, every injury scrutinized. Lexi learned that greatness always comes at a price. But the team thrived under pressure. They learned to turn adversity into strength, focus, and unity. The Caitlin-Lexi dynamic wasn't about skill alone. It was trust, instinct, and mental alignment. Caitlin threaded impossible passes. Lexi caught them perfectly, finishing with precision. Two different flames converging into one unstoppable force. And every other player rose to the occasion. The Fever were no longer a collection of individuals. They were a single, synchronized unit, Lexi reflected later. Resilience isn't glamorous. It isn't perfect. It's lonely, hard, and demanding. But it's what separates those who survive from those who thrive. Through injuries, adversity, media scrutiny, and rival pressure, the Fever learned the truth. Greatness is forged, not given. Caitlin Clark and Lexi Hull didn't just survive the WNBA. They transformed it for themselves, their teammates, and the league. The ultimate lesson came when Caitlin returned from injury. The Fever were different. Stronger, smarter, united. The spotlight, once only on Caitlin, now reflected on every player. No longer was this a story of one superstar. It was a story of many rising together. Fame, hype, and expectation had been harnessed. They became a team that thrived under pressure. Resilience, unity, trust, sacrifice, courage. Caitlin Clark didn't just bring talent. She brought transformation. Lexi Hull didn't just return from doubt. She brought leadership. Together, they showed what teamwork and relentless focus can achieve. The Fever didn't just win games. They reclaimed their identity. They created a culture of accountability, trust, and excellence. This isn't just a basketball story. It's a story about life. Adversity will come. Pressure will come. Scrutiny will come. But greatness? It isn't about avoiding struggle. It's about choosing to rise through it. Caitlin Clark and Lexi Hull chose to rise, and in doing so, they carried an entire team, an entire franchise, along with them. We're not defined by our losses or mistakes. We're defined by how we respond, Lexi said. And when you trust each other, you can face anything. The season wasn't just a comeback. It wasn't just a transformation. It was a rebirth. Caitlin Clark and Lexi Hull redefined resilience, leadership, and unity. And the journey isn't over. The next chapter? Championship pressure, worldwide attention, and the ultimate test of what it means to rise together. This is more than basketball. It's a story of fire, friendship, and fearless determination. And for the Indiana Fever, and for fans watching around the world, it's a story that will inspire for years to come. Resilience isn't about surviving. It's about thriving together.